Chaverim. We are in Masechet Pesahim. We are on Daf Mem Amoud Bet. We are at the top of the page. On the first line, the last two words. Says the Gemara. Hahu arba dichite ditava bechishta. There was a boat of wheat, and the boat of wheat sank. It actually fell in the water in a certain river. I don't think it was a big, huge boat. A small little boat that was carrying wheat across from one side of the river to the other side of the river, and it was before Pesach. Mem Amoud Bet. And again, we'll read the first line, last words. Hahu arba dechite, a certain little boat of wheat. Ditava bechishta. It sank in the river which is called Chishta. So what's the halacha? Obviously, it's going to become chametz. Because now once the wheat is immersed and soaked in water for a certain amount of time, you take it out, very good. But now it became chametz, and even if you grind it afterwards, it's chametz flour. So Rava, Sharia Rava is zabunen enochim. Rava allowed that it should be sold to a goy. Sell it to goy, no problem. The Gemara challenges. Itive Rava bar Levi. Ne Rava. Rava asked the question to Rava. Beged shevad bo kilayim. Shavad bo kilayim. Hareze lo yinkelenu enochi. So if you have a clothing, and by accident somebody sewed some, it's a linen cloth, but a little bit of wool got inside. Or you have all these clothings, we have tons of clothing over here, tons of wool, and one of them is kanaim, one of them is linen together with wool. And we're not sure which one. Avad, we don't know which one it is. So you have it's a batch, or it's one baguette that we're not sure. There's some kanaim over here, we don't know how to get it out. It's just impossible. Today we have labs and we have magnifying glasses and telescopes and all those things. But back then there was a little bit more problems. So what do? You're not allowed to sell to a goy. Velo yasebo marda'at hamo. If you want to make it a saddle for an animal, for a camel, for a donkey, you're not allowed, because when you sew it, if you sew some k'laim into a saddle, maybe sitting on the k'laim is not a problem. But let's say maybe somebody's going to take we wouldn't do this today, but they would take actually the strings out. They would take the threads out and use them for something else. Could happen.
Well, you're not allowed to sit on it?
It seems to me you're allowed to sit on k'laim, but if you put in the saddle and you're going to sell it now to a Jew, maybe the Jew's he's going to be missing a string over here. I don't need the saddle anymore. They would not throw things out. They would save everything they could. Everything that we can save, we're going to take it out. So they take the strings and put it over here, but it's all kanai. So aval osino to tachichin nemet. All you can do with it is make it a clothing for a dead person, because a dead person is pater from mitzvahs, and nobody's going to take the clothing from a dead person because it's asur. You're not allowed to take something that's being used by a deceased, whether it's his space where he's buried, or his coffin, or his clothing, etc. So you're not to do that. So you see that you're not allowed to sell it to a goy. The Gemara says why? Why can you not sell the kilayim to the goy? Answer is namishum da'adam azvin Israel. You're going to sell the Jew's going to sell, the goy's going to sell to a Jew. Yeah. If I sell a batch of clothing to a goy, he's going to go ahead and make it, put it on special on Amazon. Some Jew's going to buy it, then it's kilayim, so you get into a problem. So you cannot do it. So why would you allow here to sell the chametz to a goy?
So you can't put anything on the market less than it's going to come in the hands of a Jew.
Absolutely right.
Oh my God.
Yes. Now today we don't buy things without a hechsher, but here we're talking about wheat. So wheat you don't need hechsher. Imagine water. Water you don't need hechsher. So you're buying water. You're buying wheat. What could be wrong with wheat? You don't know that this wheat was soaked in water. Whoever soaks water in wheat, nobody ever does that. But here they were soaked in water, so it's chametz.
So it's only things that you cannot see.
Exactly.
Things that you can obvious you can sell to a goy.
Yes, of course. So whatever. You can sell pork to a goy. Yeah. You can sell whatever you want. But if you sell things that a Jew might want it, and there's an isur involved, you can't do that. So Rava changed his mind. You can sell to a Jew. You tell him that it's chametz, but you sell small quantities, so that he will finish it up before Pesach. Didn't have storage back then. Huh?
So we're talking before Pesach.
Yes, we're talking before Pesach. We're talking before Pesach. So if you have a quantity of chametz wheat, not if you have bread, if you have crackers, you have things like that, which obviously it's chametz. Something that people might forget that it's chametz. Even when you buy wheat, if you leave it, if I sell you a big quantity, you're gonna, maybe your kids are gonna come, a person's gonna move, he's gonna leave it over. You don't know what's gonna be. But if it's a small quantity that a person has just amount to make his daily bread for the next week or two, and chametz is in 3 months, so Pesach is in a few months, so therefore it's going to definitely be used up before Pesach. that would be mutar. That's what Rabbah says over here. That's what Rabbah says. The Gemara continues. Tanu Rabbanan, en molinin et hakdera b'Pesach. They had a concept was called molinin. Molinin was they would take flour and put it into a dish, and it would give a little bit of sustenance to the dish, a little bit of body to the dish. You know, it's a little bit too watery. So put some flour inside. It's gonna thicken it up. But you can't do that on Pesach. Why not? Because putting the flour into some meal, which is not into some, there's water over there, there's liquid over there, it's going to make it chametz. But if you want to do it, there would be another way to do this. Chometz has the property, has the ability to prevent from making something become chametz. Chometz, vinegar. Vinegar is so sharp that it prevents it. It's going to cook it. It seems to be that it's going to prevent it. I'll read the Rashi to see how that works exactly. No, so really, it's very interesting. It seems to be that the chometz will actually cook the wheat. The vinegar will cook the wheat, and now it's going to be cooked, and therefore it's not going to be able to become chometz, because once something was cooked, we said it can become chometz. So what do you have to do first? First you put the food, and then you put the chometz. But it seems to be, according to this appointment, if you put the chometz, if you put the vinegar first into the meal, into the pan, into the pot, whatever you're cooking, so it's going to lose its potency because it got mixed up with the rest of the food, and now it needs to come in fresh. But it can't put it in there, let it simmer there, let it be there, and then put the chometz in. That won't work. But the Gemara says, "V'yeshomim af noten et chometz." Some say you can even put the chometz, the vinegar, first. And it's so strong vinegar that it will not lose its potency even if it was mixed up before you put the flour. Who's the one that says that chometz vinegar is so strong that it remains this ability to cook even after it's been mixed up with the rest of the pot? Yes, who is that? Amar Rab Chizda, Rabbi Yudahi. This is Shitat Rabbi Yudah. Rabbi Yudah is the opinion that chometz is very, very strong. The Tanan, ha'im pas v'akdecha. We're talking about Shabbat. Shiviran mirut tachin lo yiten l'tochot tabnim. So let's say you're talking about cooking on Shabbos. Obviously, it's something on the fire that's called keder rishon. You can't put anything in. You put some spices into your keder rishon. What's on the fire on Shabbos, it's going to cook it. That's for sure. But what about if you take the keder rishon off the fire? It's not on the fire anymore. It's off the fire. That's called keder rishon shiviro shusar me'al ha'esh. So the halacha is it still cooks. Keder rishon still cooks. When you make a coffee, what do? You take the water into the cup. You put, that's a keri sheni. Keri rishon, keri sheni. You put this. It's still keri rishon. Keri rishon, even if it's removed from the fire, it's still going to cook. The first two were cooking dishes. The second one are serving dishes. So the kiara is what you're serving. You took your cholent, you took it out of the crock pot, you put it on the serving plate. You put it onto the tamchui. That's okay, because that's keli sheni. You can put spices into keli sheni, because the rule is keli sheni and umivashem. Rabbi Yudah Omer, that is the opinion of Tanakama. Rabbi Yudah says, lekonu noten, chutz midvar sheyesh bo chometz v'tzir. A keli sheni that has vinegar in it, or it has tzir in it. Tzir is like the oils that come out of the fish. They're very, very potent, and they could still cook even in keli sheni. That's Shitat Rabbi Yudah. It's not the halacha. Rabbi Yudah holds that if something, a keli sheni, has vinegar inside of it, can't put something inside, even if it's a keli sheni, because it will cook that item that you're putting inside. So our opinion before, which says if you want to cook the kemach that you're putting into your pasta, into your soup, to make it a little bit more thick. Well, if you put vinegar first, according to Tanakama, that's it. It loses its power. But according to Rabbi Yudah, it remains potent. It keeps its strength even if you put it into the soup or whatever it is, even in a keli sheni. So it's going to cook it afterwards, and that's what we want on Pesach. We want it to cook on Pesach. On Shabbat, we don't want it to cook, but on Pesach, we want it to cook because we want it to cook the flour to the point where it won't be able to become afterwards chametz. The Gemara says, why did you go so far to say it's Rabbi Yudah? We learned in yesterday's daf, Venukma Rabbi Yossi. We learned yesterday, Ditnan Rabbi Yossi Omer Shoran bechometz tzomtan. If you remember yesterday, he said we have barley, and the barley was soaked in water, and now there's a fear that it's starting to puff and it will become chametz. So what do? Says Rabbi Yudah, says Rabbi Yossi, so quickly soak it in vinegar, and vinegar has the property of canceling out the puffing, the fermentation. It's not going to come. So say, look, you could have said it's Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi also says that vinegar is very potent. The Gemara says, no, Rabbi Yossi says vinegar is so strong when it is left on its own. There, when Rabbi Yossi spoke about it's just a cup of vinegar, it's a bowl of vinegar. It's not mixed up in a pot or a pan or with different foods. But if you put it together with the different foods, so it will neutralize the potency of the vinegar and then it won't work. So really, we're talking about Shitat Rabbi Yehuda, that he says that vinegar is very strong. Bottom line, are you allowed to put flour inside your soup to thicken it up? Don't do that, because it's going to come chametz. But if you put vinegar right after flour and then right away vinegar, so it seems to be the vinegar when it's going to come in, it's going to cook, it's going to be so strong, it's going to cook up right away the flour. Rabbi Yehuda says even if you put the vinegar afterwards, the vinegar before, it still stays potent, still stays strong. But this is during Pesach. During Pesach. A little bit scary, huh? I don't think anybody's going to do that. You have some food, you're going to put some flour inside. I'm not doing that. But if you want to do it and you pour the vinegar right away afterwards, either it's not going to taste good, but even with the vinegar, you're going to ruin it with the vinegar. Anyways, but you're allowed to do it. According to Rabbi Yehuda, you can put it in, and then according to everybody, you can put it in the flour and then right away pour chametz. It's going to neutralize it. The Gemara says, Rabbi Una Amar Echad Ze V'Echad Ze Asur. Ula says no, you're not allowed to do anything. Never put flour inside your with vinegar before, with vinegar after. Don't do this. Mishum lech lecha amrinan nezira. Schor schor lekarma lo tikra. So there's a statement. I wonder if that's a pasuk. Is that a pasuk? That lech lecha, David?
Which one?
Lech lecha. I don't think it's a pasuk.
No.
Mishum lech lecha amrinan nezira. I'll tell you what it means. It's a statement that we say to a Nazir. A Nazir is a person that took upon himself not to drink wine. Is a Nazir allowed to hang out next to grapes? Is he allowed to walk in the vineyard? He's allowed. I'm taking a walk in the vineyard. I'm not going to drink the grapes. So we tell a Nazir, don't even go in the vineyard because you're going to eat the grape. Don't get close to the prohibition because you're going to eat the prohibition. So that's what it says. Lech lecha, get away from here, Amiran Nizira. Get out of here. Don't come around the vineyard, because if you come to the vineyard, you're going to drink. And you're not to drink because you're nazir. So therefore, I don't care if you put vinegar before, vinegar after. You're putting kemach in your flour, in your food. In the water, you're going to start to get chametz. Don't do that. Stay away from that. Rapapi sharle burdiki. So Rapapi, he permitted bakers the be resh galuta. Resh galuta was the king of the family of David HaMelech, which happened to be in Bavel, which retained a certain prestige and power over the community. It was like the dirigeant of the community, the president of the community. Since in Eretz Yisrael we had the king David HaMelech and the family of Melech, we went to Chutzaretz, we don't king anymore. We still retain these families that would be like the liaison with the goyim to the Jews, like the Vadair or something like that. And by the way, we still have it today a little bit. In Rebbes, many times you have Rebbes that they're families from the Rebbe, from David HaMelech, and they're still the Rebbe in the community. And sometimes the Rebbe's not always the biggest tzaddik in the community. Some you have bigger tzaddikim, but he's the Rebbe, he's from the family, he's the CEO of the company, in a sense the leader. Sometimes the Resh Galuta would be tzaddik, sometimes would not be tzaddik. But either way, in the house of Resh Galuta, Rapapi allowed that the bakers over there, the Galuta, chasise is flour that's already been roasted. So flour that's already been roasted, it can't become chametz. So he would allow them to put this roasted flour into their food. Even though Ula just said, don't do that, and we said before you got to put vinegar, if it's roasted, I let you do it. So in the house where the people are, it's important people, chashuv people, fancy people, they have a lot of guests, so you guys are allowed to, but take only this one, don't take this flour.
It's the grains that were over dried, and then the flour is regular. It says you're allowed to thicken a pot with flour made of over dried grains. Made of over dried grain.
So I didn't read that, but I'll tell you, Rashi says, what is this Abshuna over here?
The grain was
okay, so I have, Rashi says, Kimcha davushna, davshuna, and I have a little tet over here, which is bringing me to Misorat Hashatz, and he's telling me.
Okay, so the flour is over dried.
It's over dried, and I even think that it's cooked, right? It's like roasted. Is it over dried or it's roasted?
He says because the grain was over dried, it would not leaven. Rashi interprets chasise as the flour made of over dried grains.
Mm-hmm. That's it. So it's over dried or it's roasted?
Kemach karu here in the.
So there it says kemach karu. So Ozvada says it's roasted. Okay. So Machlok is our school knows about that.
There's no
water.
Yeah, but
There's no fermentation afterwards. It's already
Exactly.
cooked.
It's done.
So therefore you
It's
can do that. And by the way, anybody can do that. That's fine. But he gave the heter to the Resh Galuta. Yes, you're allowed to. Now that's very dangerous to do that because if you start putting flour in, this flour yes and this flour no. So the Rava didn't like that. And Rava says, 1 second. Ma Rava, Ika de Share ki aminta beduch de Shri Ravde. 1 second. There's a lot of employees over there. There's avadim over there. They don't know. You're going to tell them to do that? They're going to mix everything up. Sure. You know, in the kitchen, if you're a mashgiach of a kitchen, you got to be extra strict. Because whatever you allow, they're going to take it to the next level. So yes, we allow this flour. Every flour is mutter. So how could you allow that in the house of Resh Galuta? In a private setting, maybe. But in the house of Resh Galuta, that's like a public setting. That's not a good idea. Amara Ika Damar. So some say, Ika Damar Rava Gufe Mache Kidra Bechasise. And some say, Rava himself in his house would do it. He would do it himself where there was no avadim. I would like to know what the article says on that. What it says over there.
Some maintain that there is no halachic argument between the two versions of Rabba's approach to thickening the pot with chasiseh. Others maintain that the second version indicates that Rabba held there is no objection whatsoever to thicken the pot with chasiseh, and hence there's no reason to prohibit even in a household of many slaves.
Okay, so it's a machlok at how to learn this.
But it's really dangerous. I mean,
It's dangerous. I learned this when I learned this, and that's I think it says over there in the Ozvadar. He says that Rava wouldn't allow it in the with this. He would allow it in his house, where him in his private house, he's the balabait. He would allow it, but in a public setting, he won't allow it. And many times you have like that. The rabbis have to be stricter in community settings because otherwise you're going to end at the Varsov. Somebody called me yesterday. They made a mistake. They invited a family member, and Nebuch, the family member, is married with a goy. Married with a goy. So now he's invited to the sukkah. So they told me, was that good or not good? I said, you have two problems. Problem number one is it's written in Kabbalah, in Sifrei Kabbalah, that if a goy comes in your sukkah, the Shekhinah leaves. There's no more Kedusha in the sukkah.
Really?
Yeah. A goy that comes in
For
the
the whole
sukkah.
week or for a few hours?
at the moment, let's say the moment.
Let's say the Let's
Yeah,
go.
for the meal only or for the whole time?
Let's say
why the goy is there.
And while he's here, while he's there.
Let's say for the meal, okay.
A goy should not come to the sukkah. Okay, now that is the least problem
If
because
Shekhinah
that's
leaves, for sure the Ushpizin also leave.
everything's gone. Everything's gone. So that's let's say a spiritual problem, and you can't say it's halakha. You can't say it's halakha to have a goy. There's another problem is on Yom Tov you're not allowed to invite a goy because since you're allowed to cook on Yom Tov and you're allowed to cook for a Jew, but cooking for a Jew is isur. So since you're involved in the cooking, I'll make a little extra piece of schnitzel for the goy also, and that's asur. So you can't invite a goy. Now the person told me, but I'm not cooking. I'm just reheating. Everything is cooked, like most of us. Nobody's really cooking on Yom Tov. Everything is cooked. We don't have that minhag anymore. Very
You
rare
cook
that
everything
people
in
cook.
advance.
So I told her, unfortunately, I said, unfortunately, you're right, but we cannot start picking and choosing. If we start allowing in this case and then not in this case, and every family for themselves can decide if they can, they have an issue, then we're going to get into big problems. We have to put a glam-clad rule across the board, and we can't start changing it. No goy whatsoever. It doesn't matter if you're cooking or not cooking, because you mentioned
On all Yom Tovs, not just
on all Yom Tovs. On all Yom Tovs. So now imagine, what would you say? That's a problem. They aren't.
Imagine the stories where a goy went to eat for Pesach and he got upset because the
Rabbeinu.
yeah,
but Rabbeinu said the story that the Jew didn't know. He pretended like he was a Jew.
he was pretending it was a
Yeah.
Jew. Okay, sorry.
So what would you do in that case? So now, you have on one hand, you're going to embarrass them by telling them not to come.
No, absolutely.
On the other hand, they're only invited for the night. On the other hand, you have an issur. So we cannot play with the Torah. Asur is asur. So I recommended, would you maskim? I said, switch the invitation to Shabbos. Because Shabbos you can't cook. It's true you have the spiritual problem, but at least you're not going to look like you're getting rid of them. You're going to say, I made a mistake, we're eating out, I thought this day we're here, we're not there this day. So you come on Shabbos, it would be better. So they come on Shabbos would be better. What are you looking for?
You mentioned also the problem.
Also on Shabbos problem?
He mentioned the goy problem. I forgot what he said.
Oh, the goy problem in Kedusha is for sure a
Yeah.
problem. But here, the feelings and sensitivity, also, I want to say like this. I would say that here the intention of the family that called me is obviously good intention to mikarev them. You understand? It's true that somebody could marry with a goy, but they're still Jewish. And if you bring them close, you never know what good it could bring to this couple. So, based on that, I would think that it's not a regular case of inviting a goy, the embarrassment, and the other problem. Anyways, that's all. Let's go to the Gemara. Let's go to the next Mishnah. En nodin kemach letoch charoset. Charoset is not the charoset we have. Charoset used to be something that they used to use as a dip. And they used to put over there some flour, and they used to put some... no, not mustard. They used to put some different things inside over there. And it was a little bit sharp. It was slightly sharp, and the kemach would take away the sharpness. So you can't put kemach into charoset. So now you want to make a little dip on Shabbat, on Yom Tov. You want to make a little bit of dip on Pesach. So you're going to put some kemach into your charoset. Again, it's not the charoset we're using for Pesach.
Acid, you mean acid, the acidity.
Acid dip over there?
Yeah.
Or they talk hadan. You can put in some mustard seeds, some mustard juice over there. You cannot do that. Vim natan yochal miyan. So what if you did put it? So it's going to become chametz. So what should you do? It doesn't become chametz right away, according to Tan Kama. So eat it right away.
Right.
The best way to save the situation is eat it. Drink the whole thing. Rabbi Meir Rabbi Yosef Remir says no. It comes chametz instantaneously, and therefore you're going to get into a problem, and you cannot eat it. En mevashnin et Pesach b'mashkin, v'lo mimei perot. Now we're going to. What does he say?
I was recommending that one refrain from allowing non-Jew to enter the sukkah during all sukkah. The note says, the Sifrei Kohen says that the second the sukkah disappears.
Wow.
The sukkah
The
disappears.
shach. It's the shach.
Yeah, he says all of sukkah.
It says all sukkah.
Wrote that the second the sukkah disappears when a non-Jew enters it during sukkot. Yo.
In my in-laws' house, there was my father-in-law used to work with a goy, and they were friendly with him, and like they used to like keep up a little bit. And so once I know he got to the house there and was seeing all the things the Jews do, the Jews do like so. And he said his name is he said he's glad as a goyim. He's glad as a goyim. So they call him in the house glad I'm a goyim. So sometimes he wants to come visit my father. He said glad I'm a goyim is coming. So we always made sure that he wouldn't come to the sukkah. So now we're speaking about Korban Pesach. Korban Pesach cannot be cooked; it has to be roasted. So what about roasting it? What about cooking with some fruit juice? It's asur, not with juice and not with fruit juice. About masakin, binoto. But you're allowed to, smear it. When you're roasting it, you're allowed to smear it. Cooking is cooking inside water. But if you want to make it give a little bit of taste by putting some fruit juice on top of it while you're roasting it in the fire, that's fine. About sakin umadbinoto. If you want to dip it after you cooked your korban pesach, you want to dip your korban pesach in some sauce or in some fruit juice, that would be mutar. So you have the baker, when he's baking, his hands get hot. Sometimes the bread is hot. Sometimes he's kneading it all the time, and he has a bowl of water. He puts his hands in the water in order to cool off the water. Instead of having maybe today they have running water, they put in but they used to have bowls of water. So the bowl of water of the baker is always going to be chametz because there's a little bit of flour is going inside there. And it's going to become chametz. So that is an issue and that is a problem. Amar Rav Kana. Machlokes, what did we say in our Mishnah? We said that it is if you put flour into harosit or haradal. So according to Tanakama, you eat it, and according to Rabbi Meir, you can't eat it; become chametz right away. So the Rabbi Hakana says machloket litoch haradan. The machloket where Tanakama says you're allowed to eat it, is only in the mustard, because the mustard is so sharp that it will cook it so fast that it will definitely not become chametz according to Tanakama alone. But if you put it, even when the Mishnah said that Rabbi Tanakama says you eat it right away, that was only into mustard. But the charoset, it's not so sharp. It's not so strong. It's only like a mixture with some acidity. It's not going to cook it right away. You got chametz over there. Even Tanakam will say that you can't eat it. That is the opinion of Rav Kana. We also have a braita that, by the way, it doesn't sound like that in Mishnah. Our Mishnah doesn't sound like that at all. But Rav Kana is saying that that's the pshat of our Mishnah. We have a braita to that effect as well. Tanya namiachi. You cannot put flour inside choroset. The braita says, "Vim natan yisrof miyad." You burn it right away. No, with no lenient opinion. Right? The Torah Charadan, Rabbi Meir Omer Yisrof, Chachamim Omrim Yochal Miyad. According to Chachamim, you eat it right away. I want to go a little further. It's a short class today, and I want to stop now. Miyad. Amar Rav Huna, Bered Rav Yehuda, Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Shmuel, Nadachaki Divrei Chachamim. Okay, so what do we have? Our Mishnah sounds like Chachamim allow everything, whether it's Charadan or whether it's mustard. Rav Kana says, and that's what a Braita says, no, Chachamim only allowed the mustard, not the charoset. Comes Rav Nachman in the name of Shmuel, Amar Rav Huna bered Rav Yehuda, Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rav Shmuel. So Rav Huna bered Rav Yehuda says, name Shmuel, Alachaki divrei Chachamim. We follow Chachamim. Amar Rav Nachman Ritzach Rav Huna bered Rav Yehuda, Acharoset kamar? Mar or Acharadan kamar? When you say halachas like Chachamim, are you talking about the mustard? Or are you talking about the charoset? Meaning, if it's like the mustard, then that means that Chachamim agree that you got to burn right away the charoset. Or maybe you don't hold of Rav Kana. Maybe you don't agree with Rav Kana. Maybe you say that Rav Huna, that the Chachamim also permit to eat the charoset right away. He asked him, so again, you guys got it? The Mishnah sounds to be that everything's mutter Chachamim. Rav Kana says that charoset is not allowed for Chachamim. Charoset becomes chametz right away. Rav Huna says, in name Shmuel, halachas like Chachamim. And Rav Nachman asks Rav Huna, 1 second, is halakha like Chachamim in mustard, like Rav Kana, or is halakha like the Mishnah of Rav Chachamim that even the charoset is mutar? This is what he asked Rav Huna. Amar le neman nafkimna. What are you talking about? The answer is the Rav Kana. The Amar Rav Kana machloket toch hadan, but toch charoset divrei kol yisrof miyad. Really, I'm asking is that you agree with Rav Kana or you don't agree with Rav Kana? Amar le lo shamyani. I never heard of Rav Kana. Kilomar lo svirali. Really, it means I don't hold of it. Meaning, Chachamim permit everything. So when Rav Huna said that it's mutter, Rav Huna said that Chachamim permit it completely. Amar Rav Ashi kavatei Rav Kana mistabra. However, Rav Ashi comes and says actually it makes more sense like Rav Kana that Chachamim only permit in the mustard. You know why? Amar Shmuel. Shmuel says in another place, En alecha ki Rabbi Yossi. Remember what Rabbi Yossi said, we mentioned before, that when you have barley that's puffing because it was in water, you put it in vinegar, and the vinegar will stop up the fermentation process. Shmuel said, the halacha is not like Shmuel. It doesn't work. So therefore, says Rav Ashi, so now, since we're talking about charoset that has vinegar inside, vinegar doesn't work to stop the fermentation. So it makes sense, since Rav Huna said in the name Shmuel, and since Shmuel said that halacha is not like Rabbi Yossi, so therefore the vinegar doesn't work. So here too the vinegar doesn't work. So if you put the flour inside the charoset that's vinegar, it's going to come right away. Answers, my love, samute hodolot samit, hachamue mehamea. It doesn't work to stop it, and it even allows it to become chametz. The Gemara says no. Dilma no mitzamet samit. No, maybe we could say that when he said it doesn't go like Rabbi Yossi, it doesn't prevent it, it doesn't stop it from being chametz, but it also stops it from becoming chametz. In other words, if it was already getting to be chametz, it's too late. It's going to continue. But if you put some flour into something that already had the vinegar, it will prevent it. Meaning it's a neutralizer. It won't take it back. It won't take it from 9 to 0. But it won't allow it from to go to 0 to 9. It's going to keep it at this middle level. So therefore, it's not a proof over here. So therefore, we have two opinions. We have the opinion of Rav Huna that says Chachamim allow both, and we have Kana that says Chachamim only allow mustard. Chazak Baruch Chag Sameach.